Welcome to Career Tools. Today's cast, throw yourself under the bus. The questions this cast answers are, what do I do if I contribute to a team failure? Should I admit my own mistakes? How honest should I be in hot washes and after-action reviews? If you want the answers to these questions and more, keep listening. If you're a member of a large organization, one who's got a learning and development staff who teach individuals in your organization important tools and concepts, the Manager Tools Train the Trainer program may be for you. We can help your corporate trainers teach people within your organization the tools of one-on-ones, feedback, coaching, and delegation, thus preventing us coming there and teaching you ourselves, or people attending public conferences. That sounds interesting to you. Send an email to maggie@manager-tools.com to learn more about the Manager Tools Train the Trainer certification. Amanda, this is a special edition of Career Tools, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Folks, if you don't know, I'm Sarah Sentis. I'm one of the managing partners here at Manager Tools, and I'm not a typical or regular, I suppose, voice on Career Tools. That said, Amanda is a regular voice, albeit new. Amanda, what podcast is this for you?
This is my second one.
Whoop, whoop. It's going to be fun.
Very exciting.
It's going to be fun. Special edition for all of the listeners of Career Tools. 2 relatively new voices. So, today we're covering a topic, really interesting, really fun, such a smart topic. Throw yourself under the bus. Now, what does that mean? You're in a meeting where your boss and your colleagues are discussing a recent team failure, and you're aware of several things that went wrong, including some actions you were responsible for. Now, the common wisdom, the stupid wisdom, would suggest that you should avoid talking about your own mistakes in hopes that others' contributions to the failure were larger than yours, and you'll avoid being blamed for what was your part in that failure. And by Manager Tool standards, that's an ethical problem, but also an efficiency and effectiveness problem. The professional answer is to throw yourself under the bus. So, Amanda, what's our outline for today's cast?
Our outline is 1, when you're wrong, admit it. Right? Pretty much common sense, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
2, consider the process and the risk. And then 3, know the difference between blame, fault, and responsibility.
Love it. All right. So the first part, when you're wrong, admit it. As Amanda said, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you've contributed in any way to a failure of your team, we recommend you admit it quickly, without delay. Don't wait for other people on the team to offer up their mistakes. If you're going to contribute to a discussion about why something went wrong, admit as soon as you can what you did or didn't do that contributed to the team's failure.
And with that, you're the best person with this information. You don't want someone else to give out this information because you're the one that knows it.
Yeah.
So be the first.
Exactly.
And when you're not talking about a team failure, we still recommend you be upfront with what you did that didn't work and what you didn't do that might have made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
If your boss ever asks about your performance, do not hope that she will skip over you and that your misses will be missed, that you did enough good that your flubs will be forgiven. Hope is not a method.
Hope is not a method. Oh my gosh, I almost said that to somebody today who wrote me something about, I hope this works in an email. I was like, hope's not a method. Okay, hope's great, but not enough. So how do we
not
do
at
it?
work, right?
Not at work. Not in my
Hope and a
personal life
prayer.
either. Exactly. Exactly. Too funny. All right. So hope's not a method. How do we do it? Well, it's easy. When the floor is opened up for inputs, if you had any errors or failings, be the first or one of the first to speak up. Pro tip. All of us always have failings. So just get in the habit of always being first and make your mistakes or misses or missed deadlines your first comments. Throw yourself under the bus right away.
I feel like it would hurt less if you threw yourself under the bus. At least you have control, right? Than having someone else do it.
Exactly.
Do it for yourself.
Exactly.
And it's important to be one of the early speakers if you can't be the first. If you can't get out ahead of this, you want to be the next one in line, really.
Yeah.
First is ideal because that way no one else can possibly throw you under the bus if you've already done so.
Yeah, to Amanda's point earlier, you want to get out ahead of that.
And someone who, after you've shared your misses, simply echoes yours without offering up any of theirs will be seen as grandstanding, selfish, and not a team player. And probably a good bit worse.
Uh-huh. Exactly. We've all heard this one before. Let those without sin cast the first stone. What's the one about glass houses?
Don't throw rocks in them,
Yeah,
for sure.
exactly. Don't throw rocks at glass houses. I don't know, whatever it is. And guys, these are reminders that we should be careful not to point out other people's flaws because by definition, we all have our own flaws.
What? We're all human and make mistakes?
Yeah, I know. Except
No,
you and I,
really?
Amanda. Except you and I.
Perfection. The special edition, perfection.
Love it.
Now, if you're wondering how it might sound, if you're about ready to throw yourself under the bus.
Yeah, we've got a script for this, folks.
Yeah.
That is, Amanda's going to read the script. And if you're a licensee, you've got access to the script in the show notes.
I'm actually really good at throwing myself under the bus, so I'm a good person to read the script. Here's how it sounds. I'll go first. Here's the stuff that I did or didn't do to contribute to the miss. I failed to see the problem with the vendor, or even if I had feelings that the vendor was getting a little sketchy, I didn't let anyone know or take steps to tighten my oversight of them. They're a part of this miss. I also got behind early on the review of the specs for the tech team. I did catch up, but I think there was some cascading deliverables and deadlines that delayed downstream work. Finally, when I got head down on the specs about 3 weeks ago, I know I was pretty lax on the comms with everyone on the team. I could have done both, and I didn't.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's done. It's not that hard. Now, I would say, in order to do that, prior to said meeting, you're going to want to spend a few minutes, right, thinking about what you've done, what you did that contributed to the miss, etc. And as an aside, note the first sentence or the first thing Amanda just said was, I'll go first. If you're in a meeting where your boss asks for input on a failure, you no doubt won't be surprised when no one speaks up. It's the natural way of things, right? We all do that. It's okay, we're going to have this conversation. Awkward, everyone's quiet, no one really speaks up first. But at the same time, we all know it's not the right way of doing things. And we can drive this point home by switching your perspective. That is, we employ something over at Manager Tools we often call the Horstman Middleman Test. If you're not familiar, we have a podcast called The Middleman Test. And essentially, what we generally mean when we're talking about the middleman test is don't always think of situations from your perspective. Think of them from the perspective of your manager instead. So now, thinking of that situation, you're now the manager of that moment. No longer just a direct. You'll learn in an instant that your folks don't trust their boss enough to be honest, and it'll burn a bit. So, the karma rule applies here, folks. If you're going to want candor as a boss, offer up candor as a direct. Learn to develop trust before you need it. As Admiral McRaven reminded us, you can't surge trust. Trust takes time to develop, right? Through your one-on-ones, folks will trust that if you throw yourself under the bus, you're the kind of manager that will be happy to receive that. And if you were a manager, you'd be happy to receive it too.
Absolutely. And one more aside about this sample speech. Don't think you'll get the same credit or be viewed the same way if you simply echo other comments about your misses. That means, there's an order of magnitude difference in throwing oneself under the bus and agreeing with others when they do it to you.
Totally. Exactly.
You want to control the narrative. That is not to say if someone beats you to the punch of detailing one of your errors, you should defend yourself or argue. Not at all.
Exactly.
Just acknowledge that they're right, even if they're partially wrong. Remember, this guidance is about setting an example of effective behavior in team discussion of a team failure. We're not talking about your colleague coming up to you privately to criticize, condemn, or complain about you to your face.
Exactly. And we'll talk a little bit about, I want to call them edge cases. Maybe edge case isn't the right word, but when maybe these rules don't always apply, but that's for later in the cast. But for now, back to our meeting. So, sure, there's a line they ought not cross in their offering up of your mistakes. If you perceive that they're doing it with malice, rather than as a form of education around the team's failed effort and therefore future improvement, by all means speak up. But here's the key. Don't attack them. If someone brings up your failings before you get an opportunity to do it yourself, just say, well, I would put it this way, and restate the issue as you would have had you had the opportunity to be the one who brought it up first. And this is an especially useful technique if your would-be executioner isn't well-liked or known for this kind of selfishness. To Amanda's point a bit earlier, people who are going to throw their colleague under the bus more quickly than you can do it yourself probably have a bit of a reputation for some of these selfish types of acts. Therefore, let it happen, and it will be seen by others.
Now, let's get into the good reasons for throwing ourselves under the bus because they far outweigh the selfish reasons for not doing so. The first reason is easy. It's simple. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it is.
If we avoid stating our own mistakes in the interest of protecting our own skins, and economics might suggest that very thing, the outcome is the worst of all. And as Benjamin Franklin's saying goes, we must all hang together or we'll all hang separately.
Exactly. Folks, do the right thing is a reminder to contribute to the kinds of behaviors that move your culture away from one of self-protection and lack of trust, which are inherently related, and toward a culture that is one of high trust. And if you listen to the Manager Tools podcast, which I'm typically a voice on, you'll know that we recently released a podcast called Culture is Behavior. And that's all culture is. The aggregation of all of the behaviors in your organization. If you want a better culture, engage in the behaviors you want to see in others. Either you'll set an example others will follow and change the culture for the better, and surely benefit with increased responsibilities because you'll be seen as a leader. That's the hope, right? That's the hope. Hope's not a method. That's the goal, right? That's the goal. People will see what you're doing positively and will follow suit, or you'll stand out for not fitting in and realize it's a time to find a different culture in a different organization. Because let's face it, this might not be the place you want to work.
Right. And doing the right thing seems inherently easy, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the easier it gets because it becomes commonplace with that trust in place. Doing the right thing should be easy. It should be the first thing we should do.
Yeah. I mean, Amanda, this is a little bit off topic. I'm going to take a small little segue here. This reminds me a lot of Assume Positive Intent. Folks, if you're unfamiliar with it, my personally favorite Manager Tools podcast of all times is called Assume Positive Intent, which essentially talks about the fact that we see in others' behaviors that we attribute to malicious intent when our own behaviors, we know, come from a positive place. That is, again, middleman test here, using a different version of middleman test. What that means is, if every time you act, it's with positive intent, every time they act, it's also with positive intent, and they're attributing malicious intent to your behaviors. And that may not seem perfectly related to the topic, but as an individual who's functioning within an organization, if you see the others around you behaving in a way that you interpret to be malicious, it increases the likelihood you'll do the same back, right? You feel like you need to defend yourself as well, for example. because that's what everyone else seems to do. And someone's got to make the first move. Someone's got to be the one that's like, hey, I'm willing to do the right thing.
Yeah. Stop that awkward silence at the beginning of the meeting.
Exactly.
Be first, do the right thing.
Right. That admits your failures.
Yeah.
Folks, let's face it. I mean, people within organizations don't always feel as though throwing themselves under the bus is the right thing. But you now know differently, and therefore you can do it. And if you do it, I think you'll be surprised how many people will do it in return.
That was the perfect segue right into the second point. It's what we'd want our colleagues to do.
Yeah.
If we're willing to do it, we would want our colleagues to do the same, to admit to their mistakes. Because when it comes to mistakes, we know all the information. Now, imagine you're sitting in the meeting and someone else speaks up, early or late. And when they do, they point out everyone else's flaws and ignore their own. Even if we're so callow as to avoid talking about our own mistakes, we don't want them talking about ours either. That means all that's left for them to talk about is their own. I mean, if we beat them to the point, then they have to talk about their own mistakes. And again, the person that knows the most information about what was a failure is us, if it's on us, right?
Exactly. I think I mentioned earlier, efficiency. It's efficient to be the one who says it and the one who says it first. Otherwise, it's this gorilla in the room, right? Like this, awkward. Everyone's either kind of avoiding it or they're saying something. Now, imagine, again, in this meeting, that someone speaking up and being candid about their mistakes. Imagine that someone's doing that, right? Imagine someone's being candid. Would you, as a recipient of someone else throwing themselves under the bus, not see that colleague as honest and forthright and professional? And if you would instead see them as weak and politically naive, and that means, in my mind, that you're probably not here listening to this podcast. You're not the kind of person that's going to think of them as weak and naive and, oh, look at them. What a dum-dum. No, you're the kind of person that would see them as honest, forthright, and professional. And what we want to do then is encourage that in other people. Encourage that kind of integrity, that kind of professionalism, that kind of ability to help other people when they need it. That's what we want.
Yeah. And, they may get ahead faster than us.
Yeah. Oh, selfish people. Oh, will
Right.
in many cases get ahead of the unselfish. You're absolutely right.
Right. But you know what? You better not mess up or stumble.
Oh, yeah.
Because no one is going to come to your rescue.
No one.
It is, what's the saying? It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, exactly.
A professional career.
It's like investing in relationships. It's not going to happen overnight. But
Absolutely.
Exactly. So the third then, admitting your own mistakes is actually smart. You'll be seen by your boss as a professional. Whether anyone has ever said so or not, the professional's behavior in situations like this is to communicate in a way that benefits the organization, not themselves. That's it. So it makes you look good. You'll be seen as smart. Your boss will appreciate it. That's why.
And the problem with all the self-promotion going on with career thinking these days is that it attempts to suborn the law of sub-optimization. If you optimize the individual, the organization suffers. It's not one person in an organization. It is a lot of people to make it successful. Now, colleagues who self-promote, especially in a forum like a hot wash.
Yeah, it's by definition the contrary or the opposite of the purpose. The purpose of a hot wash isn't to make yourself look good. The purpose of a hot wash is to talk about what happened. And the kind of people are the people who would promote themselves in that instance are people who want to put themselves above their organization.
Yeah, and you know what? That can work for a while.
Yeah,
but
sure.
The proof that it fails is a simple ethics test, is the thought experiment. What would happen if everyone behaved this way? The answer is easy. The organization that everyone is trying to climb upwards will fall downwards.
Exactly. Penny wise, pound foolish. That is, I'm sure we've mentioned it here before, the purpose of your organization is to serve society. And one of mankind's greatest achievements is the fact that these large organizations do exist. Let's face it. The moment you have two people in the same room, you've got two perspectives and two wants to approach any given situation. We say sometimes at Manager Tools, the definition of conflict is two human beings in the same county. So the fact that we as an organization are able to get all of these differing opinions and differing points of view moving in the same direction toward a single cause is necessary for the achievement of the organization. I mean, if you want this to be about you, start your own company and be your own boss. That's the only way this is about you, because otherwise your job's about the organization. Okay, so the fourth reason, we've already gone through 1, 2, and 3 of why to throw yourself under the bus. The fourth is you're going to be seen as gutsy, courageous, and a leader. And that's not really a reason to do something. How we look shouldn't be the standard of our behavior, but it's a pretty good guidepost, I would say. That is, looking gutsy, courageous, and a leader is not half bad. And if you look those things, you're probably doing the right thing, essentially.
Absolutely. It's not a bad thing to look good.
No, it's not.
All right. Fifth, you will deny others the short and fraud of throwing yourself under the bus. Yeah.
The thing is, some people want to steal the food from your fridge. Basically, I don't know, that's probably not a really good analogy for this, but the thing of it is, some people will think of it in kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of way. Oh, look, I get the opportunity to throw them under the bus. But we don't want them to be given that opportunity. Why not steal the food from their fridge? We know in every organization, there's always someone in the crowd. We call them that guy. That guy who would be more willing to make a scapegoat in order to hide their own sins. So, we want to prevent them the joy of identifying, pointing out our own failures and take that away from them. We want to essentially be like, no, sorry, I'll throw myself under the bus before you can.
Yeah, the only person getting pleasure throwing me under the bus is going to be me.
Yeah, exactly. No one else should get that pleasure. Steal that from them. And if you have someone in your team or in your organization, and you probably do, who is the kind of person that would get joy from throwing you under the bus? What better joy can you get for yourself than doing it before they can?
It's a win-win.
It's a win-win. All right, so the sixth reason, you'll make those who attempt to hide their own mistakes look all the less professional if you admit your own and then they don't own up to their mistakes. And most of our colleagues know who did what, right? Most of these situations, most of the time, it's not completely unknown who did what that contributed to this failure. So, for that reason, us pointing out our mistakes creates a situation where either they admit theirs or they don't, and everyone knows all of us had our own failures or could have done more or could have done better. And again, you look like a leader. You look like someone who's willing to admit your mistakes. If your colleagues or your coworkers, everyone knows the mistakes they made, and you, in turn, create a situation where they either have to point them out or they don't point them out.
And we all make mistakes. That's the best part about all of this. So it's okay.
Yeah.
Point out your own so no one else can.
Exactly. I'm sure many of the people that are listening to this podcast, because if you're into career and management podcasts, you would be a person who read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Greatest business book of all time, arguably, but this is our opinions, so here we are. And that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, has one of its core tenets: if you're wrong, admit it quickly and empathetically. And it's been around for hundreds of years. There's no amount of progress, no amount of new fancy career advice or new career fad kind of thing that's going to change the fact that admitting your mistakes is part of our shared humanity. It's the right thing to do. So do it.
And quickly, because it stings less. Don't draw
Oh my
out.
gosh, does it ever?
We're coming to San Diego in August. The 1st and 2nd of August, we're hosting our Effective Manager and Effective Communicator Conference. Get away. Come to San Diego. See us, learn about effective management and effective communication. We'd love to host you. Sign up online at manager-tools.com/training. San Diego, August 1st and 2nd.
Okay, so what's the next part of our guidance?
We're going to consider the process and the risk. So there's a caveat to this guidance. While humans can be noble spirits, they can also be ugly, vulgar creatures, unfortunately. If your organization is built on selfishness and self-promotion, where the messenger is always shot and the narcissist get the promotions, hold your fire on this guidance. Take a pause.
Yeah, I alluded to that a minute ago. That is, we definitely recommend you admit your own mistakes and hopefully buoy up the culture of your organization due to people seeing some other people in the organization doing the right thing or good behaviors. And we also live in the world of reality. This is manager tools, not fantasy tools. So we want to make sure that we give guidance to people who might be in another type of circumstance in order to give them a guidepost or a better judge of how to proceed. There's an old saying that no joint statement of organizational principles is a suicide pact. And that's true for being honest about one's faults and failures. And no, you don't have to confess your failures, especially to someone who doesn't see their role as a sacred one. That said, for most of us, our organization isn't perfect. But for most of us, it's also not a cesspool of decay and immorality either. So for most of us, most of the time, the high road is worth taking.
And the 3 most likely ways that this kind of decision, speak up or hide, will occur is at a root cause analysis, an after action review or hot wash, or a witch hunt.
Exactly. So we're going to go through now the approach to take in those organizations, should it be malicious, in any of those 3 approaches to figuring out where the problem occurred or what happened, starting with the root cause analysis, or an RCA. And it's a powerful tool, often used, especially in technical organizations, to seek the actual cause of a mechanical or systems failure. And while we love the tool, it's also vastly overused as a management tool. It's a tool that is really good for technical or analytical devices as opposed to human ones. So, if you trust your manager and she's doing a root cause analysis, we urge you to admit your mistakes early and often. The nature of RCAs is the absence of blaming or fault finding. A true RCA is about learning and improving performance through shared understanding.
Now, a hot wash or an after action review does not achieve the penetration of an RCA. So it is not designed to reveal insights, but rather make them possible. It is not necessarily designed to identify the root cause of a failure. In fact, hot washes can and should be used even after successful projects and evolutions. I really enjoy doing a hot wash after our events because even what went well is a good thing to know. Of like, why did it go well? And knowing like what we should maybe avoid next time. It's just a great after event activity to do.
Yeah. When Amanda says our events, you're talking about our public conferences.
Yes.
Yeah. When we do public conferences, and I do think we do about 40 a year in cities all over the place. We also do virtual ones. We do a hot wash. If you're not familiar with what a hot wash is, there's a cast for that too. Sorry, Amanda. Go ahead.
No, I love it. There's a cast for everything.
I know.
Look them up. Right?
There's like 1,400 of them.
Now, with an RCA, if you trust your manager, we encourage you to be open and honest with your failures in a hot wash or an after action review.
Exactly. And then there is the third type of discovery session, I'm going to call it, a witch hunt. A witch hunt, on the other hand, is a completely different matter. They're cretinous, selfish, insecure, and untrustworthy bosses in this world, and you might work for one. If you work for a boss who is selfish, insecure, untrustworthy, what we would recommend you do in their witch hunt is keep your mouth shut. You're not required to have your own personal integrity used against you. Just remember to change that. Should you become someone's boss, remember what it feels like to work for this person. Remember what it felt like when everyone on the team made mistakes. You were one of them, and then a witch hunt was held. And you felt as though you were forced to hide your mistakes in case they'd be used against you. And therefore, if you're a boss now or a boss in the future, do not visit those same ills upon the people that work for you. Make a note in your Delta file. There's also a cast for that. Make a note in your Delta file, the list of things that when you're a boss, you're definitely not going to do. And mark it with an asterisk. Never host a witch hunt.
Those should only be used for around Halloween time, right?
Right.
A witch hunt.
Exactly. Exactly.
That brings us to number 3. Know the difference between blame, fault, and responsibility.
Okay, so as I mentioned a minute earlier, folks, we've been around for a while. I said 1,400 free podcasts, literally 1,400 free podcasts. We've been sharing our guidance for 18 years. And full disclosure, we should have addressed this topic quite some time ago. We regret that we didn't. The professional world has, over the past 30 years, lost understanding of the concepts of fault and blame and responsibility. And it's hurting all of us. So it's worth making a point here at the end of this guidance about the difference between blame, fault, and responsibility.
All right. Blame is a word that comes from the world of cowards and fools. It's about shaming someone about past behavior rather than focusing on learning and the future behavior. It's all about the future. You can't change the past, right?
Yeah, we talk about that. We talk about feedback all the time.
All the time. Now, professionals pay no heed to blame. Professionals care about learning and growth, not fixing the past. Blame is for prosecutors and politicians and activists. Blame incites base emotions and not the higher reaches of our minds and humanity.
Exactly. And then there's fault. Fault is maybe less egregious, but it's in the same ballpark as blame. Those who seek to assign fault are missing the point of hot washes and after-action reviews and learning and professionalism. People who seek to assign fault will often say that they have to know what happened, why that thing happened, etc. But these are just excuses for fixing blame. The real professional focuses not on fault or blame, rather on learning and growth. To Amanda's point, on the future.
Managers and colleagues who seek to place blame or fault are small people, not to be trusted, and career-wise best avoided. If you believe that your boss or your organization are seeking to place blame, remember that your commitment to honor cannot be used against you. You do not have to throw yourself under the bus if you work in a tyrannical regime. Accepting an offer of unemployment is not a suicide pact.
Exactly. If you're surrounded by these people now, believe us when we tell you that there are places that aren't like where you're at. Seek them out. Ask your fellow Manager Tools community members in our forums. Send us an email, customerservice@manager-tools.com, and we can help you. We know of good organizations. We know of good managers hiring people who want to work in good organizations. There are people who will help you. We will help you get a place of responsibility. Okay, so folks, at the core of professionalism is a need to focus on responsibility. If you've made mistakes, by all means take responsibility for them if you're in an ethical organization. But responsibility is not about accepting blame or fault. Those are fleeting accusations made against others. Responsibility is immutable. You are responsible. You will be responsible. The difference between blame and fault and responsibility is blame and fault come and go, and usually at the hands of small people. But responsibility is forever. You can be proudly responsible while denying blame and fault.
There you have it.
There you have it.
Well, just to summarize, professionals are not afraid to admit responsibility, but they know there's a time and a place, and fault and blame are not a part of that package. When you're responsible, always proclaim it and be the first. When blame and fault are looking for a scapegoat, hold your fire.
Love it. Thanks, Amanda. That was a great cast.
Thanks, Sarah. This is fun having you.
Thank you for allowing me to join you on your podcast, friend. I like it. Okay, thanks, folks. And we'll see you next week with a new topic.
Bye.
Bye.